Hello guys, welcome back to another exciting Naruto fanfiction. Heart. If you're enjoying this series, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more amazing Naruto, which is what if Naruto traveled back in time to save everyone. Part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. It was a dark day in Konoha as the 26-year-old Rokudime Hokage paced around his office. The reason why this young man was so stressed out was that he was pinned, checkmated. Well, not yet, but by this time the next day he and his village would be. Flashback. The 26-year-old was pacing in front of the Kyuubi inside his cell. This was a few months before the present day. Kyuubi, what am I going to do? What if they decide to mobilize their plans and we don't see it? We lost our top strategist yesterday, and they left a message. The tall blonde's voice had faded to a quiet whisper instead of the shouts he had started with. Calm down, Kit. I have an idea. The great fox then nudged his confiner with his nose to guide him to the floor. The water that usually made his mind dank and musty had long since dried up. Kit, there is two ways to do this. First is a special ritual, the second is a very dangerous jutsu that none have been able to do. Do what, Fox? Do what? What is that for? If it's to help Konoha, whatever it is, I'll do it. To return to when it all started, to stop this atrocity from ever happening. Is that not your greatest wish? You know we had a very rough escape from them last time, and the next time will be the finality, them or us. Do you not wish for a chance to undo it all? The Rokudime at first just stared at the old demon with glazed over eyes, thinking about what he said. After a few moments he snapped back into focus and demanded urgently. What do we need to do? End flashback. As he was about to finish his 132nd pace, the door to his office opened with a soft click. Naruto-kun, what's wrong? You've been up here for hours and Kia has been asking where her daddy is. The Rokudime looked at his wife sadly and tiredly sighed. Come here for a moment, Hina-chan. I have something to show you. Hinata shot a worried glance to her husband as they walked over to his desk. When she had read what the papers that he had pointed to said, her eyes widened as she tried to stifle a gasp. Is there anything we can do to stop this? Naruto wrapped his arms around his wife from behind as he buried his head in the crook of her neck. I'm sorry, Hinata, but there is nothing. Our forces are spread out too thin. Things have been getting worse since we lost Shikamaru. This just proves how good of a strategist he was. Hinata was distraught. She hadn't seen her sunshine this helpless since he realized that Sasuke would never come back, and that to save everyone he would have to kill the one he once considered a brother. She was close to tears now. So there is nothing, absolutely not one thing that we can do to stop this. Oh Kia, hush, honey. There is one thing. Although I do not know if it will work, it is risky. Please assemble all of our friends in the meeting room, and bring Kia too. I wish to speak with her before I do what I must. Without a word, Hinata dashed from the room to collect her daughter and organize their friends, leaving a muttering and once again pacing, Naruto. I hope you know what you're doing, Kyuubi. Don't worry, Kit. It'll work. And I know how you feel, I'll miss him too. 45 minutes later, the door to his office opened once again. Daddy. A small girl of 5 years old with sun-kissed blonde hair and lavender Hyuga eyes ran over to the Hokage and latched onto one of his legs. Heh. Good to see you too, sweetie. As Naruto was bending down to pick his daughter up, Hinata called worriedly from the doorway. Everyone is here, Naruto-kun. Let's head to the meeting room. She looked downright nervous about the situation. Very well, Hina-chan, let's go. To his daughter now he asked in a gentler voice, with a small smile. Do you want daddy to carry you, my little angel? Yes, daddy. Carry me. The small girl was ecstatic as the tall blonde man, who was thinking what it would be like to be that carefree, swept her up in his strong arms and carried her into the other room as her mother led the way. As Naruto walked into the room, he reminisced over how the number in the room had drastically decreased. Asuma as well as Kurenai were gone, but their 11-year-old son remained and stood over by Ino and her 6-year-old son, whose father, Ino's husband, Shikamaru was also dead. Choji was still there, although he had barely made it. A few months ago he had suffered a near-fatal injury and was only saved by Shikamaru Wo sacrificed his only life to save his oldest, and best friend. Guy was also gone, as were Kiba and Shino. Tsunade, whom Naruto thought of as a mother figure, was gone, the result of an assassination. Naruto took her death hard. He had been out in the front lines leaving Tsunade to deal with the village upkeep. Jiraiya remained, though his right arm and leg now bore nasty scars and burns. The old pervert had also sworn an oath to never write another book as long as he lived. He had seen too many things to even think about it anymore. Enko was also there, however her partner, Ibiki, was killed in action. She was actually one of the slug Sanin's last patients before she was taken down. The snake Kunoichi now sported a metal prosthetic left leg from the middle of the thigh down. Lee had lost his left arm, but luckily got away with his life, grieving over the loss of his sensei. Tenten was gone, leaving Neji with their 6-year-old daughter. Neji himself had an intimidating scar on the left side of his face from the temple to jaw and continuing from left collarbone to right hip. Sai had simply disappeared. The girls of the Rookie 9 were better off than the boys. Sakura only had a small crescent shape on the back of her left hand since she was now Konoha's head medic nin. Hinata only had a few scars on her hands and another larger one on her abdomen. Ino had some scars, one her arms and one on her right thigh in a strange upside down Y pattern. Naruto himself had twin scars. One on his front from right shoulder to the left hip and one on his back from left shoulder to right hip, so together they made an X deskin. His deepest wound, however, was having the knowledge that Sasuke, his teammate, friend, brother, would never come back. The Konohamaru Corps, or what was left of them, were there. Undan had died around 8 months ago on a mission with Kiba. Moegi was currently sitting on Konohamaru's lap with her head resting on his shoulder, relaxing slightly. They had gotten back from a mission just yesterday and were still tired. Gaara was there as well, the last shinobi of Sunagakur. The lone survivor of an extinct civilization. His siblings were killed on the same battlefield as Shikamaru was a few days earlier. Kakashi was the only sensei of the Rookie 9 left alive, for his best friend, Iruka, was gone as well. He no longer read perverted books and was no longer late. Nearly 10 years of fighting could do that to you. Yamato as well had departed from the world of the living around 3 years ago, along with the users of Mokuten wood element ninjutsu. The tall blonde Hokage sighed as he looked around the room, wishing that there were more faces. He smiled sadly as he set the little blonde girl on the floor and nudged her over to her mother. As he straightened, Naruto took one last look around the room before starting to speak. Friends, I have asked you here today to. Never mind, I'll cut the formal crap. It's too long-winded and time-consuming for its own good. To be blunt about it is that if we don't do something, this time tomorrow Konoha will be no more. To say that they were unprepared for such a revelation would be an understatement. Only 3 people in the room, who didn't already know this information, Kakashi, Neji, and Gaara, didn't gasp in surprised horror. While Kakashi and Gaara, who didn't make a sound, looked tense as Neji had his eyes closed shut, taking a slow calming breath before snapping them open again and asking sharply, "Is there anything we can do to avoid this fate?" Most in the room smiled slightly at the irony. Neji, the one that used to be so determined that your fate was set out in stone, was fighting against it. The Hokage responded as an old war veteran would. No, our forces are spread out too thin along the border, they won't make it back in time. They have been planning this the whole time, for years, slowly decreasing our numbers. As Naruto rose from the diagram he had drawn while talking, the young Rokudime made a small note, as if he was talking to himself but just loud enough for everyone to hear. There may be nothing we can do, but there is something I can do. He met the eyes of everyone in the room as he said the next part. I have been saving this for a time of great need in case it should arise. For months I have been researching, studying, experimenting, and I have finally found an answer. Although I need to make a pact. A pact with the Angel of Souls and Hitotoki. Even though that there is a good chance they won't agree. When he trailed off again, Sakura stood up from her chair with a worried expression on her face, asked their Hokage in a wary but demanding voice, "What are you going to do, Naruto? Tell us. Tell us please." Her voice had grown weak at the end as she thought of the lengths he might go to save the ones he considered family. The others looked at him either with the same amount of worry or a steely gaze, both types knowing that if his mind was made up there would be no changing it. To try would be considered futile. "Don't worry, I've found a solution that will not take away any lives, and if I do it correctly, it will gain many back." While many were trying to decipher his most recent cryptic message, Kakashi had noticed his behavior and what it meant. His former student was acting just as his father had when he was trying to tell him and the Sandaime of his plan for defeating the Kyuubi. Now it seemed that his son was about to do something just as risky and dangerous. "Naruto-kun." It was Hinata who spoke up this time. "Tells us please, just please tell us." The Rokudaime sighed and decided to tell it to them straight, no more subliminal hints or cryptic codes. "Hina-chan. Everyone, I am going to try and go back in time." "You're going to what?" Everyone within the room who was old enough to understand the depth of his suggestion gaped in shock. Although the question was on everyone's mind, it was Asuka, Asuma's and Kurenai's son that asked it. But Hokage-sama, how is that possible? Is it even possible? Naruto sighed and started his explanation. To travel through time relatively safely, one must have an abnormally large amount of chakra. That and a heck of a good reason. That is where the pact comes in. For the first time since entering the room, Gaara looked up and questioned quietly, "How exactly are you going to initiate this pact? Aren't those beings that you mentioned, they control part of the spirit realm? It would be difficult to contact them." Many quietly stated their agreement. "I'm aware of that and I have found a solution. Through a series of seals and symbols I will be able to channel chakra through them, which will then reach the spirit realm and call them here, after which if they accept they should send me back in time. If not, well, let's cross that bridge when we get there." The blonde had once again started pacing as he explained his plan. "If they agree they will do something, I'm not sure what, they may even have to contact Kami himself. However, if they don't agree or the summoning doesn't work, I know of a jutsu that is said to traverse through time as well, but it is highly unstable and haven't been known to even work. I will only use that as a last resort." Naruto stopped pacing and once again turned to face them. With a sorrowed but determined look in his eyes he continued, "Friends. Thank you. Just. Thank you for being there for me through all these years. Even though I was just some dumb blonde, you stayed with me. You guys truly are my family, thank you." He paused for a second and sighed. "That is all for now. If you have any more questions, stay behind. This meeting is adjourned." Many were slightly startled at the abruptness of the end of the meeting and took a moment to realize what happened. When they did, many if not all came over to say goodbye, knowing that this may most likely be the last time that they saw him. On their way out of the room, Naruto heard something that brought a small smile to his lips. He doubted that he would hear for a long while. "Aunt Ino, can't we please stay? I want to see how Hokage-sama does the jutsu thingy. Please see." It was Asuka again, and Naruto knew that one day, not in this timeline, this one was soon coming to an end, one day that curious in nature and desire for knowledge would make him a fine shinobi. He was doing this so that would happen. A better future instead of this hellish one. They all left until the only ones that remained were Hinata and Kia, Kakashi, Jiraiya, Sakura and Gaara. They stood there around him looking at and waiting for his next move or words. When finally the old Sannin spoke up. "Naruto." He sighed. "There is no other option, is there?" He then muttered under his breath just loud enough for them to hear. "You're too goddamn stubborn for your own good, Gaki. Ha, you're just like your father." The blonde let a small smile slip by when he heard the last part before responding, "Even if there was another way, Jiraiya, I probably wouldn't take it anyway. After all, this way I will be able to save people who have died." Asuka will have parents and the children won't have to live in a time of war. Even though as it stands, this is the only option. Jiraiya still had a few more questions. What if none of this does happen? What if you will have changed so much that it will be even worse? What if you are never Hokage? What if Kakashi cut him off here? I see, and Hokage-sama. His eyes shifted slightly, the ones that you are going to save. Were you including Haku and Zabuza as well? The Hokage's mouth twisted into a slight grin. You know me too well, sensei. And didn't I tell you to stop calling me that? The masked shinobi gave a slightly amused grunt at the last comment. As Hinata regarded her husband wearily, Sakura asked a question that was on all of their minds. Naruto, when exactly are you planning on doing this? Her answer came as a pair of guarded sapphire eyes before. Right now, Sakura, I actually have a room prepared for it. Please follow me. As Naruto walked out of the room, he failed to notice his wife's expression, for Hinata at hearing when he was going had frozen up, eyes wide, and had instinctively hugged her little girl closer to her. Upon feeling this, Kia looked quizzically up at her mother and turning back towards the door before complaining slightly and pointing. Mommy. Daddy left. Come on, let's go. Shaken out of her reverie, Hinata murmured a quick, "Hi, of course baby," as she took off after the others. When they entered the room that Naruto had indicated, they were slightly surprised to find it all white. You could barely see the lines that told where the floor, ceiling, or walls were. This effect made it seem as though they were floating in nothingness. The door that they had just come through was outlined in black so one could see their way out. The light in the mysterious room seemed to come from the walls themselves. As he motioned for them to stay against the wall that had the door, Naruto walked to where they could only guess was the far wall. While he cut his finger, he answered their unasked question. I need to draw some special seals in blood to achieve the summon. They watched as the Rokudaime drew intricate-looking seals on the walls in front of them and a large round one on the floor. All in his own blood. When he finished, he turned and faced them while walking to the edge of the circle on the ground and spoke. Gaara, if this doesn't work, either of it, please promise me one thing, that you will take Hinata, Kia, and everyone else, and that if possible to take them and run away from this place. That goes for you too as well, Kakashi-sensei, Ero-sei, Jiraiya-sensei. The three nodded with an intense look in their eyes. The moment was so intense many failed to notice the respect he had shown the Sannin. Gaara responded with, of course Naruto, you were my first friend and my best friend. It is my honor to help you and protect your precious people. I owe you that much. The others nodded once again in agreement. Naruto smiled a small, soft and warm smile and uttered a low, thank you. Before going over to Hinata and kissing both her and his daughter on their forehead. He whispered in her ear. I love you, Hina-chan. Never forget that. He kissed her once more, on the lips this time, before saying goodbye. She realized by now that it was indeed goodbye and she was horrified, to Kia and Sakura. The blonde once again walked back to the edge of the circle and after flashing them a smile, performed some hand seals and placed his hands on the edge of the seal as he shouted out, Sisho Meshi, Hoka Second Fuke. Spirit summons. Other world guardians. The seals all around the room started glowing a bright red and purple, throwing everything else into shadow. Then just as suddenly as it started, it stopped and there before them stood two people, one of which had gray wings that when parted revealed a young beautiful lady with white shoulder-length hair and glinting mischievous dark violet eyes. The other, also a woman, had light sky blue tinted hair that was up in a ponytail with some bangs in the front with calm silver eyes. Ah. The first one sighed in content before continuing. Finally. A summon to the mortal world. It couldn't have come at a better time too. Shinigami-sama was starting to get on my nerves about the soul increase lately. How about Utoki-chan? The other, if one was to guess, was Hitotoki, sighed as well, except this time in exasperation. Kiera, please, this is serious. She then turned to Naruto. Boy, you called on us to send you back in time. Correct. For the first time they noticed the soft lines framing her eyes on her otherwise youthful face and understood why she sounded grandmotherly. After grumbling to himself, "I'm not a boy," Naruto then bowed to the figure and replied, "Hi Hidotoki-sama, Kiara-sama, that is what I wish of you, if you would grant me that honor, that is." He looked up to see Hidotoki smiling softly and Kiara giggling silently into her hand before she said, "Naruto, you didn't even have to ask. I have been watching over you since you were about 2 years old. Of course there were times when Shinigami-sama had to hold me back from doing something unpleasant to those villagers of yours. But all in all I've pretty much watched over you your whole life. Not like that you pervs. Get your mind out of the gutter. Although, Shinigami-sama will be pissed off at me if we do this." This had Naruto slightly worried, but those worries were abolished when the other figure snorted slightly. He'll understand Kiara, and if he doesn't, I'll make him and get a grant from Kami, okay? Anyway, if there is no other questions, let's start the ritual. The others watched in silence as the two spiritual figures took their positions and instructed Naruto on where to stand. He smiled at them one last time before closing his eyes and concentrating on the time and place he wanted to end up in. Hinata was scared. She felt like part of herself was going to disappear along with Naruto, like she was about to be ripped in two. When the blonde started glowing, she felt her body start to move on its own. She placed her hand gently over Kia's eyes, quietly putting her to sleep. Hinata had tears in her eyes as she shoved her daughter into Sakura's shocked arms and ran towards her now brightly glowing husband, screaming in her mind, "Naruto." Just as she touched his arm, a blinding red and white light flashed and sizzled through the room, signaling that the ritual was complete. The flash had subsided slightly and time had stopped, for time cannot go forward if one is going back. The only reason this was still here was because they had not yet reached their destination. The two legendary spirits looked at each other and said the thing that was on both of their minds. Oh shit. Kiara and Hidotoki were speeding through the time chasm discussing how to fix this problem. "Toki, you find them and slow them down. It shouldn't be too hard seeing as how they were both out cold. I will go to where they were supposed to end up and arrange things around so a rift doesn't appear in the continuum." "Affirmative, Ki, just remember that it is her right hand to his left upper arm. They have to be touching there and nowhere else, or their souls could cause mayhem and destroy the place they wished to save. I know, and don't worry, everything will be fine. Anyway, I should hurry up if I want to get there before them." With a last confirmation, Kiara zapped out of existence and reappeared over Konoha as it was 14 years in the past. As such, the Hokage monument was home to 4 heads. Hitaki Kakashi was brown-nosing a book, Asuma was alive, Rock Lee had both arms, and Yamanaka Ino was a crazed Sasuke fangirl. Ah, the past truly was great now, wasn't it? A white-haired, winged figure stood atop the third Hokage's stone head looking out over the village. The Hyuga compound. Where is it? Kiara thought, pointing to various areas of the village. Deserted Uchiha Place, Nara, Junin Apartments, Hokage Tower, Marketplace, weird Anbu thing with guards. Ha, there it is. She spread her wings and took off towards the Hyuga compound. Avoiding the guards, Kiara slipped in through the correct bedroom window and quietly observed a sleeping 12-year-old girl with short midnight blue hair. Hinata heh, want you be in for a surprise when you wake up. The soul angel then went into her spirit form and inserted herself into Hinata's body and took control of her mind and body alike. The now puppeted heiress opened her eyes and smirked. Success. She got out of bed and put on her day clothes. Just before jumping out of the window, she remembered to have, Hinata, leave a note to make sure that no one would get too suspicious or worried. Taking out a pen and piece of paper, Hinata wrote a note explaining why she wouldn't be there in the morning. I have gone out to do some extra training before the Genin team placements. I will be back after I meet with my sensei. I'm sorry if I have worried you. Hinata. The possessed girl then grabbed her bag for the next day, turned, and jumped out of the window. Across the village, the window to one Uzumaki's apartment opened just as the clock ticked to 3 in the morning. It had taken half an hour, but Kiera had finally maneuvered Hinata's body. Hinata's consciousness is asleep, through Naruto's living room window and onto the floor. Kiera's spirit form exited Hinata and solidified just in time to catch the girl before she hit the ground. She then laid the Hyuga on the carpet and arranged her around so that her right arm was over to the side. The angel turned and quietly tiptoed into the bedroom and scooped the obliviously sleeping blonde boy before going back to the living room and laying him next to his future wife. Carefully as to not wake them, Kiera placed Hinata's right hand around Naruto's left bicep. Thank Ka. What or who is a god's apprentice supposed to thank? Well, whatever. Thank Kami that Naruto lives alone and that they are both pretty heavy sleepers, or this could have been quite messy. That is when Kiera finally took in her surroundings and shuddered. Like this room, ick. She shivered at the thought of what kind of questions she might be pelted with before writing a quick note explaining a few things and hopping over to the window sill. At 4 a.m. one would have seen a mysterious figure come out of a window of an apartment on the third floor before shutting said window and promptly vanishing into thin air. At 4:01 a.m. you would have seen a faint reddish-purple glow from the same room. Also, if one was to look in said room, you would see two 12-year-olds unconsciously holding each other in their sleep, upon instinct. A comfortableness and familiarity not unlike those of older married couples. Very interesting events indeed. The sun rays just peeked over the horizon and through the half-open curtains when his eyes opened. He looked around his living room from so long ago before his eyes rested on a clock. It read 5:31 a.m. UHGG, so early, and why do I have a slightly detached feeling? At least the time travel worked, but why do I feel like someone is laying on me? Someone like. Naruto half sat up and stared at the person hugging him. Hinata-chan. He inwardly groaned at remembering what happened. Then again, that was her promise. Ooh, flashback. Ooh. Naruto was sitting on a rock overlooking a small stream when Hinata entered into the clearing. He had his head in his hands and seemed to be trying to control himself from destroying innocent plant life. Hinata-chan. His voice sounded strangled. She quickly crossed the clearing and took him in her arms. Whispering, she told him, I'm here, Naruto-kun, I'm here. Hinata knew why he was like this. Earlier that day he had returned to the village from a dangerous high-ranking mission, bruised and bloody. He quietly told Tsunade, for they were only 19 and she was still alive, the details of what happened before suddenly bolting into the forest. She had found out moments later that he had killed Sasuke. She had run after him, and this is where Hinata had found him. Hinata-chan. He left me and now he's dead. Asuma left, Azumo and Katetsu. What if everybody does? Everybody but me. I can't handle being alone again. Not again. Not ever. Not again. Please, not again. He trailed off at the end as tears streaked down his face. Hinata hugged him closer and kissed him comfortingly on his forehead. Shish, Naruto, it's okay. Shish, you'll never be alone again. You know why? He looked up at her like a toddler would to their parents when they said that they could fix a boo-boo. Because I'll be here, Naruto-kun, forever, I promise. And I never go back, one my word. Ooh, end flashback. Ooh. Naruto half sat half lid for the next 10 minutes waiting for his now girlfriend, he supposed, to wake up with a slightly pained look on his face. When she did, to say the least, she was stunned. So this was when he wanted to come back too. Although how did I get here? It was then that Hinata seen the slightly angry and pained look on his face. Naruto-kun. He sighed, frustrated, and rubbed his temples as she moved to sit next to him. Hinata, there was a reason why I didn't ask you to come here with me. Immediately the blonde could see the question marks all over her face. You see. He sighed yet again. The moment after we left our time, it was destroyed or unraveled, if you wish to call it that. It is like taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, as if the steps that you took didn't even happen. The only evidence is that our memory remembers it. To say the least, everyone we knew will never be, at least not that version of them. BBB, but what about? She gulped nervously, trying to hold back tears, though a few leaked out anyway. What about other things? Good things. Hinata trailed off. Naruto hugged her, knowing that she was thinking about Kia. Shish. Don't worry, not all things have to be stopped. Those things will still happen again. He kissed away her tears, and with a sly smirk on his face he added, "We just need to wait until we're old enough." At which the blue-haired girl giggled at, "Come on, let's get breakfast, Hina-chan, then I'll see if I can manifest Kyuubi to see if there have been any side effects." She nodded, and they both stood up and walked into the little apartment kitchen. Hinata paused at the table while Naruto continued to the fridge. "Naruto-kun, there's a note." He turned from the fridge, carton of eggs in hand, and walked back to her. After he read it over a few times, he looked slightly amused as he walked back to the fridge with a few offhand comments. "I was wondering why it was so clean here." When Hinata read the note, she soon realized why he said that. "Naruto, do you have any idea of how close you were to destroying this timeline instead of fixing it? You are one goddamn lucky bastard. You and Hinata had to be touching, or else. Kablam. Be thankful I brought her to your place for you. Say hi to everyone for me. Kiera. P.S. I cleaned up your place a bit. It was worse when I took up office under Shinigami-sama, and I thought that was bad." The girl's sweat dropped slightly at the postscript. She still remembered when she had to beat that out of him. "Hinata-chan, what do you want for breakfast?" "Whatever you're having. Fried eggs and ramen." Even after all that, he still loved ramen. "Sure." While she got the dishes and Naruto cooked, Hinata asked a few questions. "So what day exactly did you choose for us to come back to?" "Genin team placement." The blonde laughed a little. "I don't think I could fail the exam that badly and still pass again." Hinata giggled a bit too. "Are you going to get some other clothes, or are you going to wear the same shade of orange?" She paused to think a bit. "For the next 8 years. His eyes were the size of saucers as he looked at her and brought their breakfast to the table. "Hell no. I'm wearing something different this time." He shuddered at the thought of wearing that walking fashion crisis again. How could he have been so stupid before? "Anyway, here's breakfast. I'll see if I can get Kyuubi." He closed his eyes as Hinata sat down. "Kyuubi, are you there?" "I'm here, Kit. Don't bother repeating everything, I heard it all, and your seal retained the revisions we had done to it." "Good, so that means that you can come out and talk to us, right?" "Correct. I shall be out in a moment." Naruto snapped open his eyes as Kyuubi's red chakra started to leak out and create the compact form of a small 1-foot-tall fox. The chakra flashed once before solidifying and hopping onto the table to watch them eat. When they finished, Hinata was the first to speak. "Hello, Kyuubi." "Good morning, Hinata. How are you faring with this?" "Pretty good, I think." "Good." It was now when Naruto decided to interject. "So Kyuubi, what were you saying earlier about chakra or something?" "Yes, your chakra that has been used up on the journey. You used up about 3/4 of the stores, and Hinata used about half since she was a tag along. Anyway, this chakra usage has fortunately evened you up a bit, but if we don't do something, eventually all of the extra chakra will come back to you and your bodies aren't big enough to handle it and will turn to poison against you." "What are you talking about, Kyuubi?" "What I'm talking about, Naruto, is that you used a lot of chakra to get here, and slowly over the course of the day you will get it back, and without something to seal it with, it will poison you. So what do you suggest?" "Sealed chakra stores, a 5-point for you, Kit, and a 3-point for Hinata." He looked thoughtful and asked one last question. "Kyuubi, should we do this before or after school?" The small fox practically groaned out loud. The answer should have been obvious. "Right now, you dolt. It's already 6:30 and you have school at 8:45. Get a move on." At that, Naruto did groan as Kyuubi dematerialized and returned to him. "Well, I guess we should get going. Wait for a minute while I go get dressed, since you already are." He finished awkwardly. Meanwhile, Hinata just smiled and waved him off. He came out of the room a few minutes later wearing a black t-shirt with his red swirls on the shoulders, orange pants, and forehead protector on his right bicep. He had obviously ditched his jacket. Okay. Are you ready to go, Hina-chan? Yes. Let's go. Where are we going to do the seals? On top of the Hokage monument. Oh, that one. He just smiled and led the way out the door, locking it behind them. They arrived at the clearing about 15 minutes later. Hinata-chan, unfortunately I need a bit of blood. She quickly complied, slitting her finger and letting the blood pool in a small bowl she had in weapon's pouch. Acting swiftly to get his over with, he didn't like handling her blood. He drew seals around both of her wrists and one in between her collar bones to form a triangle, thus a 3-point seal. Creating hand seals, he yelled out, Sansu Funin, Chakra Taten no Jutsu. After pumping the right amount of chakra to activate the seals, he left Hinata to put the amount of chakra in as she desired. Doing the same process with himself in his own blood, the only deviations were that he added 2 seal points, one to each shoulder. Goso Fuin, Chakra Taten no Jutsu. After adding the chakra, he watched the seals slowly fade away before taking Hinata's hand and going back to the village. They had to meet their senseis soon. He shook his head and gave her the wide foxy grin that he hadn't used for so long before grabbing her hand and dragging her down the road. Come on, Hinata-chan. Let's go see everyone. The said girl just giggled helplessly as she was dragged away. The 22-year-old Chunin looked around the classroom while shuffling papers on his desk. Only a few students were already here as it was still quite early. Among them were Uchiha Sasuke, the well-known human iceberg because his ego was so big it could fill the Hokage Tower and still have plenty to spare. A few others were Shino from the Aburame clan, Nara Shikamaru, his best friend Akamichi Choji, and Inuzuka Kiba. He was about to go back to his papers when he heard some shuffling outside. Come on, Naruto-kun. Let's get in before everyone else comes. Hinata nudged him slightly, trying to make him move forward. Sasuke's in there. I know it, but. He tilted his head so that his eyes were in shadow. I'm not sure if I'm ready to face him yet. It was now that the almighty sarcasm demon butted in. Bah, if you're going to whine like this, I'm leaving. Besides, he yawned, I already know what's gonna happen. I'm outta here. What? Kyuubi. Stop. But he was too late. Luckily though, there was no one else apart from him and Hinata to see him suddenly start glowing red. About a second later, a small red fox appeared out of nowhere, gave the blonde, if possible, a wide grin, then scampered off down the hall. Naruto. Wah. Nothing, Hinata-chan. He was apparently bored was all. Let's go in. Thoroughly annoyed now, Naruto forgot all about a certain Uchiha, grabbed Hinata's hand and barged into the classroom. The door opened and the two preteens walked into the classroom holding hands. Before anything else, they looked down the steps to see their teacher from so long ago. Wow, Iruka-sensei is actually alive again. They both thought. It hadn't hit them until just then that they were really in the past. It was a miracle, no more than a miracle for them. It took all of Naruto's self-control to not run up to the man and hug him. It was 5 years since they had seen him last. He had died shortly after Kia was born. And here he was alive and breathing, the man Naruto considered a father or older brother figure. It was at this moment when the two noticed the strange looks they were getting, one of which was from Sasuke himself. Naruto noted this and his eyes narrowed. He was still unsure what he would do about him. The blonde actually considered killing him but quickly tossed the idea away. This time he was going to do things right. None of his precious people were going to die. He raised one of his eyebrows and asked, Huh? What is it, Tem? The Uchiha's eyes flickered down for a second before back around in his seat to brood. Both Hinata and Naruto looked down to see their hands still intertwined. They immediately let go, not wanting to arouse too much suspicion on the first day, and took seats in the row across from Sasuke and behind Shino. Well, Hinata-chan, it has begun. Yes. But what exactly has begun? She was slightly confused on that matter. They had yet to discuss their plans. Everything, I'll tell you about it later. For now, I'm going to go and see if I can get my best friend back. He winked as he grinned and stood. Hinata smiled and nodded as he went. I had the perfect scene for right here, but I forgot it, so this one will have to do. Great job. You ruined the story. That could have been what could have gotten us the big times. Gosh. It's not my fault. Well, okay, a little. Naruto sat down next to the dark-haired boy with, if possible, a nervous thump. What do you want, Obi? Sasuke wasn't interested, but he knew that he wouldn't go away until he said something. To ask you something. The younger shinobi said this as if he wanted to say it for a long time. Why? Why do you wish to kill your brother, and by yourself even? Without any help, without trying to form bonds, to make friends. To say the very least, this query shocked the young Avenger to his very core. How does he know? I've never told anyone, but the other boy continued in the same low voice. I have a small piece of advice for you. The man who seeks power and finds it, will always be trumped and surpassed in leaps and bounds by the one who has achieved power, and only used it when there was no other choice. Now Sasuke was livid. Who was this doby to talk like this? How do you know about that? His voice was thick and dripping with quiet venom. Naruto then did something that was completely out of character, at least to Sasuke, even more so than what was said within the last few minutes. He put on one of those looks when people are dealing with particularly slow children and sighed. You're kind of obvious, you know. So Naruto-kun wa, safe. She was interrupted by none other than Yamanaka Ino, and Haruno Sakura. Hinata looked away from the sight of the two bickering girls when she heard Naruto shift BN. I laughed at this word. Before it came to me there was absolutely no F, and stand up. She was interrupted yet again, but this time by Naruto, who quieted her with a wink and playful grin as he began to walk towards the squabbling girls. What on earth is he doing? It had been about 5 minutes since he had spoken to Sasuke and gotten him piping mad. He decided this might just get him to lose that extra layer of ice he added himself, maybe. Hey, Sakura, he yelled in true hyperactiveness that he was known for. What do you want, Naruto? I don't have time for you right now. She had to work out a way to beat Ino Pig and get Sasuke to fall madly in love with her. Although, Naruto certainly did look better without his jacket. Bad thoughts. Bad thoughts. Bad. Thankfully she was broken out of this train of thought at what Naruto said next. So you don't want to sit next to Sasuke? What? Okay. Sasuke said that. He could feel said boy's glare burning into the back of his skull. That he wanted you to sit next to him. Sasuke-kun. And in a daze-like trance the pink-haired girl left a fuming Ino and wandered over to the seat next to Sasuke and sat down. Naruto almost forcefully had to keep himself from laughing at everyone's faces, especially Ino's and the rest of the rookie genins that had only recently came in. He gave a wide mischievous grin before going back to his seat. Seeing this as a good time to intervene, Iruka called everyone to attention. Class, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to begin. He smiled to himself as everyone turned to face him. They have grown so much. As you know, everyone in this room has graduated and passed the genin exams. Congratulations. But now the hard part begins. You will go on missions, protect Konoha, and be put in various situations of danger. A ninja's life is not an easy one, and I wish you all the best of luck. The Chunin sensei paused for a second to look at the young ninja hopefuls before starting once more. And without further ado, I will read out your team placements. Everyone seemed to sit straighter at his words. Team 1. Naruto and Hinata talked quietly until they heard. Team 7. Uzumaki Naruto, Haruno Sakura, and he let the tension build up slightly before Uchiha Sasuke. There was a chorus of groans and moans and one squeal of delight. Sakura's. Cha. Beat that Ino Pig. Okay. Now everyone settle down. Team 8. Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata and Aburame Shino. Team 9. Hinata turned and waved to her teammates. Naruto could see the slight shimmering in remembrance of happy times in her eyes when she turned back around. And finally Team 10. Akamichi Choji, Nara Shikamaru and Yamanaka Ino. That is the last of the teams, your senseis will be here shortly and once again I wish you good luck. With that Iruka gave one final smile before heading through the door. Senseis came and went, Hinata's shortly after Iruka had left. Naruto gave her a kiss on the cheek when she went, drawing many strange stares and 3 shades of red on Hinata's part. Now the only team left, again, was Team 7. And Naruto being Naruto started doing something rather odd. It was a form of chakra control really. He had discovered it one day when he was bored. You just channeled your chakra out into a thick string and changed its composition slightly so you could see it. Currently he was making the string chakra do figure 8s around his hands. What are you doing? Startled, he dissimulated the chakra and looked up to see Sakura staring at him, or rather his hands. Oh, you mean this? He started the chakra back up for an example. She nodded in fascination. It's a form of chakra control. Basically a chakra light show. If you get good you can make it bigger and change the color too. He accentuated this by making a miniature northern lights above their heads. I can show you how if you want. Okay. He spent about the next 15 minutes teaching her. Okay, hold your hands about 6 inches apart give or take. As Sakura did this he nodded. Great. Now channel chakra between your hands. Sensing the slight fluctuations in her chakra he gave another nod. Good. Try to imagine the chakra visible, flowing down your arms and changing. At first the color will be blue, that is the natural color of chakra for humans. Usually it takes a lot of power for it to be visible, but this is a way around it. After a few minutes of concentration Sakura finally called out. I got it. Naruto looked over. It was weak and wispy but defiantly there. Excellent. Now try to make it stronger and brighter. As she was doing that, the blonde went over to the Uchiha. Do you want to know how to do it too? The dark-haired boy snorted, obviously thinking it was a waste of time. Why? It's a useless technique. It doesn't do anything. He apparently wasn't listening to Naruto's previous explanation. He once again put on the face resembling what one would adorn while talking to a small child. No, actually, it increases chakra control and chakra stores, therefore helping you increase the amount that you can use. Sasuke was still furious at him about what the idiot did earlier, but he had to become stronger. Even if it was coming from the Dobi. Hey, fine. And that is how the future Rokudaime ended up teaching his teammates how to essentially make pretty colored chakra. After about half an hour of practicing, Sakura asked, Where did you learn this, Naruto? Sasuke glanced over, trying not to look interested, but still listening. Naruto wasn't sure if he should tell her the answer but did anyway. These were his friends, right? In the future perhaps, but still his friends. Actually I discovered it one day when I was bored. It's cool to look at after all, and it's training too, so all the better. Not to mention the fact that Kia always loved it when I put on a show for her. Hey, yeah, right, Dobi. It's true. Even ask Hinata. She was the first one I showed. It was now that Sakura perked up again. What is going on between you and Hinata? Everyone saw you kiss her on the cheek, you know. Well, He became flustered and red at this point. JJJ, just practice the thing you were doing. The blonde shinobi then spun on his heels and stomped to the front of the room and started playing out pictures of chakra on the wall, starting with a figure banging his head on a tree to strangling a figure that looked strikingly similar to Sasuke. 2 hours later, this was how he found them. The pink-haired girl had her head resting on her arms, exhausted. The Uchiha was staring at his hands that had wisps of blue appearing here and there with a scowl on his face. The blonde was doing the most perplexing thing. He was making strange pictures on the wall. One humanoid figure looked vaguely like the blonde, the other like himself. What is going on here, and why is the pink one so tired? The blonde, now identified as Naruto from his file, was the first to notice him. Hey Kakashi-sensei. He bounded up and over to him while the other two's heads jerked up at the outburst to look at him. How does he know my name? As the others were looking at him, he said the first words since entering the room. My first impression. You're strange. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes. With that, the silver-haired ninja disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto meanwhile had a small smirk on his face as he thought, same old Kakashi-sensei, he has no idea of how glad I am to see him and his weird perverted ways. At least this time he didn't say that he hated us. And, last one up is the Hokage's nose picker. Before dashing out the door to find the stairs to the roof. Nose picker. Sakura murmured as Sasuke shook his head, dreading the thought of staying on the same team before following the boy to the roof. 4 minutes later they were all on the roof with Kakashi in front of them. Well, now that we're all here, how about we start with introductions? Likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams for the future. Sakura raised her hand. Sensei, how about you go first so we know what to do? Fine. My name is Hatake Kakashi. I have no need to tell you my likes or dislikes. I have many hobbies. As for dreams for the future, well, maybe if you're lucky you'll learn that one day. He quickly cut off his short monologue. Blondie, you start. All we really found out was his name. It was then that the time-traveling shinobi started talking. Name's Uzumaki Naruto. I like training. Hinata-chan. Sakura snickered slightly while Naruto pouted at her. I also like ramen and anyone else who is part of my precious people. I dislike people who judge others before they get to know them, as well as traitors. My hobbies are spending time with my friends. My dreams for the future are to become the greatest Hokage this village has ever seen, protect my precious people, help a certain someone deal with a certain something, and to deal with a certain person before they can do a certain something. Before he kills them again. He inhaled due to the fact he had said that all in about one breath. There was one thing on all of their minds, okay, that was weird, and confusing. Okay. Pinky, you're next. Pinky. Who does he think he is? Getting off at calling me Pinky. Inner Sakura roared while on the outside she remained calm but slightly aggravated. My name is Haruno Sakura. I like. She glanced at Sasuke and did a classic fangirl giggle and blush. My hobby is. Giggle and another blush. My dream for the future is. A louder giggle and a darker blush, but this time combined with a squeal. Then she stopped altogether and adorned a slight scowl, and I hate Ino Pig. Great. You Mr. Brooder. Next. Sasuke's eyes shifted to Kakashi as he started. My name's Uchiha Sasuke. I don't particularly like anything, I dislike a lot of things. My dream, no aspiration, is to kill a certain man and to restore my clan. Sasuke-kun is so cool. Naruto snickered silently at this. You better hold true to that last one this time, Sasuke. Kakashi sighed as he contemplated his team. Great, just great. No, it's fan-freaking-tastic. A brooding Avenger, and a fangirl in love with the idea of falling in love. At least one seems to have his head screwed on right. And from the one from the least likely of places too, considering his past. Okay guys, Sakura, meet me at 6 a.m. tomorrow at training ground number 3-7B, and I know everybody says 7, so no, it's 3. This story is original. A.N. Fine. 3-7 evil grin. For your survival test. Sakura once again spoke up. But sensei, we already took our test. That's what you think. That test was only to separate the total idiots from the ones with at least some hope. But this one is the real deal. If you fail you get sent back into the academy, and it has a 66% failure rate. So be ready. Dismissed. He watched their faces as they slowly started realizing that they were dismissed. Sakura's face was of shock, Sasuke's didn't reveal anything but grim annoyance, and Naruto, well, it was a mixture of determination and thoughtfulness. As they began to stand up he added, oh, and don't eat, you'll throw up. Without another second the copy nin disappeared. Damn pervert. I hoped he would have forgotten that. A few hours after his meeting with his new team and Kakashi, Naruto was laying under a tree in training ground 3-7. He had told Hinata that he would wait here for her since she had decided that she would go home after meeting with her sensei and come back afterwards. It was around 5 now and he was starting to think about what should be fixed. I defiantly know that at the very least I will try my hardest to save Haku and Zabuza. No, I will save Haku and Zabuza. I will work out the details later. I have to get Sasuke and Sakura stronger. Especially Sasuke. I could have him train with me and I could get Hinata to train with Sakura to teach her medical jutsus. Hinata had been interested in medicine since she was young but really got into the practice of it when she was 16, when she started to see how far Sakura and Ino had come with it. How ironic it would be that at first it was Sakura teaching her, but now if everyone agreed, it would be the other way around. His musings were interrupted when the lavender-eyed girl entered his vision. Hi Naruto-kun. Sorry for making you wait so long. Father insisted on me tell him the details of my team over an early supper. I think he was surprised when I didn't stutter or blush. Naruto smiled and took her hand, leading her back to the village while replying, "That's okay Hina-chan, and I bet you're going to be surprising him more and everyone else too. But, can we go to Ichiraku for ramen? I promise I won't have any more than 4 bowls." He gave her the dreaded puppy dog eyes no jutsu, knowing how much she didn't like him eating ramen for more than 1 meal of the day. She quickly looked away, trying not to give in and failing miserably. Nobody could resist those eyes. While on this train of thought she pondered, I wonder how good that would work on a mission. Fine. But, Naruto cut his silent mental dance cold at that word. There just had to be a catch. But, I get to pick out your new outfit. Well, that wasn't so bad. Right. The Kyuubi host was still contemplating this as he gave his okay and started walking in the direction of Ichiraku. And now he could be found in the middle of a clothing store with Hinata fiddling around holding up random bits of clothing, giving a calculating look before resting them on her arm or putting them back, all of course to the much bewilderment of the shopkeeper as she was doing this all very fast. I think Ino and Sakura may have rubbed off on her a little too much, he thought with wide eyes watching his to-be wife. You got that right, Kit. Remember what they did to Lee when they found out that he had a date? Both demon and host involuntarily shuddered at the unpleasant memory. He was broken out of his reverie, however, when he found a small mountain of clothes in his arms, courtesy of Hinata. Go try them on Naruto-kun. Go. With every go, she had lightly pushed him towards the change room with a slightly hyper smile on her face. I'm going. With that he stepped into the small room and closed the door behind him, leaving Hinata to sit on a chair by the mirror. About 3 minutes later he stepped out of the room to show Hinata, who immediately said, "To Sasuke-ish. Try this," and shoved another bundle of cloth into his arms that seemingly appeared out of nowhere. While Naruto was thinking, Sasuke-ish, blonde hair, blue eyes, tan skin. How the hell do I look Sasuke-ish? Upon his next show he received a 2 Neji-ish and another bundle. On his third a 2 Kiba-ish and on his fourth a 2 Lee-ish for Kami's sake. On the 5th time he went out though was a different matter. As Naruto stepped out of the change room he was met with the sight of blonde and pink hair and a very red-looking Hinata. Oh Naruto. Oh those two, even as kids I remember these two being horrible. Hello Ino, Sakura. He greeted nervously. My nightmares are coming true. The two girls must have teamed up together to extract info out of Hinata when Naruto had walked in. Ino was the first to reply. Excitedly she began, "Are you getting new clothes?" It was more of a statement than a question, but he nodded anyway. "We'll help, right Sakura." Hi. With that last proclamation the two girls stated, running about the shop picking things out. Hinata followed shortly after. The poor blonde now had 3 shopping-crazed girls handing him clothes and shoving him into the change room to try said outfit on. Girls and their shopping. One thing that men will never understand. 45 minutes and 13 outfits later Hinata finally called out, "That one's perfect." And so it was. Even Ino and Sakura had small hearts in their eyes before remembering who the boy in front of them was. Scary. He had on black cargo pants with pockets on the side of his right knee and left calf outlined in crimson. Naruto wore a black short-sleeved shirt that was open in the middle like Shikamaru's except that it was full length and had his spirals on the shoulders. Underneath he had a slightly red-tinged fishnet shirt that ended at his elbows. On the blonde's hands were black metal-plated gloves. Add to that black sandals and a black-clothed Hittite in the right shoulder and you have one good-looking blonde. Hinata turned and plucked something off a nearby rack before turning back and putting the object over his head. It was a red fox head. She looked at him with a small smile. You'll find something to do with it. Naruto gave in return one of his warm heart-melting smiles. Well, you two look really comfortable together. When did this happen? Sakura smirked while Ino picked up where she had left off. Yeah, Hinata, you're not even blushing or stuttering. At the accusation both turned red and Naruto started stuttering. WWW, what do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. As he started pushing the two to the door he prompted, wouldn't it be better if you two went and bothered Shikamaru or Sasuke or something? Unresisting, they let themselves be pushed out of the shop and started walking down the street chattering to each other about the latest developments, giggling all the way. Even though Ino couldn't help but wonder, why did he mention Shikamaru? Naruto turned back to Hinata with an embarrassed grin. Gossip queens, I tell you. The indigo-haired girl giggled. Naruto-kun, you go change back and I'll get some more copies of the outfit, okay? Then we'll pay for it. He nodded. 10 minutes later they were walking down the street. I'll walk you to the Hyuga compound, okay Hina-chan. She looked at him slightly confused before she remembered, oh that's right, we don't live in the same house anymore. Man. Why in the world this feel like divorce or separation or something? He's mine, damn it. While she was thinking this among other things that if explained would, defiantly drive the rating up. Naruto waved a hand in front of her face. Hina-chan. Why yes Naruto-kun. I was just a bit lost in thought was all. Oh. K. He stared at her confusedly before taking her hand and leading her to her old home. About a block from the Hyuga compound Hinata stopped. I'll continue on from here, okay Naru-kun. He raised an eyebrow at her. Why? Well, you remember when you first walked me home? The blonde's left eye started twitching. Oh. Right. Let's not experience that. Right now. She giggled and kissed his nose. Good night Naruto-kun, love you. He kissed her back on the cheek. I love you too Hina-chan. And with a final hug they both parted ways, one to a large mansion and the other to a deserted apartment. The first thing Naruto saw when he walked into his apartment was a small red fox. Okay Kyuubi. What did you do? The said fox gave a maniacal grin, you'll see. And without for a reply he dissipated into red chakra and returned to Naruto's seal. Grr. You stupid fox. Well whatever, I'm going to bed. All throughout the night Naruto could hear a bark-like laugh in the back of his head. Naruto blinked his eyes while looking at his clock. It read 5:30 a.m. Shit. I'm gonna be late. For the next 20 minutes he ran around his small apartment putting on his clothes that he had bought the previous day. However, the fox boy paused in his kitchen. Should I eat? Go ahead kid and bring some for your teammates too. Hey, you know it's your fault that I'm late. Kept me up with that annoying laughing of yours. I know. It was quite amusing. Now hurry up. Hi. 2 bars for me, 2 for Sasuke and 2 for Sakura. I'm going to need to but more later. With that he dashed out of his home making a beeline towards the training grounds. Where is that Dobie? A dark-haired boy thought accusingly from underneath a tree. He just has to go and be late, leaving me with this fangirl. And I really need to pound him into the ground for what he said yesterday. 5 minutes later the missing genin decided to make his presence known. The blonde stumbled out of the bushes panting. Making a mental note to get weights he greeted his teammates. Morning Sasuke. Morning Sakura. They both looked at him before Sakura yelled, You're late Naruto. Hey, the Dobie changed his look. About time. He rubbed the back of his head before replying, Hehe, well you see Sakura, I was late because I decided to bring these for us. He opened his weapons pouch and produced the 6 bars. I thought we should eat. But sensei told us not to. Sasuke just looked at them. Naruto could tell he was hungry. Well, you see, I was thinking. Sasuke snorted. That's a first. Without sparing him a look, Naruto continued. That how would he know if we ate or not? I would rather puke than be lacking energy for such an important test. And judging from yesterday, he won't be here for a while. Want one? Without talking, Sasuke grabbed 2 of the bars before going back to his tree. Seeing this, Sakura grabbed 2 as well. If Sasuke thinks it's okay, then it must be. Cha. Or 2, that works. They sat in silence for a while eating their small breakfast, each lost in their own thoughts. The Dobie is acting weird, something isn't right. I wonder now that we're a team if I could get Sasuke-kun to go out with me. These bars are pretty good. I wonder what's up with Naruto. Actually, never mind, he's being quiet. So Q, you got the plan right. Yep. I got to hand it to ya, Kit. Kakashi might get suspicious, but it'll scare him. Wiggy first. Excellent. A pause. Wiggy. 2 hours later, the long-awaited copy Nin finally decided to show his face. Good morning. What he received was a pink banshee. You're late. Ah. Well, you see, I got lost on the road of life today. Liar. Naruto sighed. Kakashi-sensei, only you could ever get lost on a one-way road, with walls on both sides. They all sweat dropped. Did Naruto just make a good joke? All eyes went back to the Junin when he cleared his throat. Well, let's get started, shall we? The 3 nodded. All right, you have until noon to get at least one of these 2 bells from me. He held up 2 shiny silver bells before strapping them to his belt. Got that? They nodded, but Sakura was starting to look nervous. But there are only 2 bells, sensei. Kakashi smiled, glad that someone had challenged him before ignoring the comment. Whoever doesn't get a bell will be tied to that post and demoted back to the academy. The atmosphere was tense, waiting for the silver-haired Junin to speak. He observed them carefully before giving them a slight warning. Remember this, to get the bells you have to come at me with the intent to kill. He heard hitched breath, saw wide eyes, but didn't give them time to repent. Get ready. Start. As they jumped into the trees, Naruto made a shadow clone to go do his part. He had to find his teammates. Sakura. She looked over to where the voice had originated from. Naruto. She asked as he dropped out of the trees. What do you want? She was stressed enough as it was, knowing that one of them would fail. But it was too much now that the unthinkable had happened. She had lost track of Sasuke. We have to work together to get the bells. The blonde offered, hoping that she would catch his drift. But there are only 2 bells and 3 of us. That means that we have to work against each other in order to pass. Naruto shook his head. Then what would be the point of putting us on teams? So that, her eyes widened in the realization that dawned in front of her. She had it. Exactly, Sakura. Now let's go get Sasuke. Sakura nodded as they took off. Meanwhile, Kakashi was just about to finish with Naruto. Senin Garashi. Naruto flew into the air and poofed out of existence. Shadow clone. How? It was then that he was caught in a hail of shuriken and kunai. Sasuke. It took about 15 minutes to find the Uchiha boy. Which wasn't saying much as he was up to his neck in dirt. Literally. Sasuke. Naruto began as he and Sakura appeared in the clearing. I have a plan to get the bells. The boy sneered at him. Humph, I can get a bell myself. Naruto rolled his eyes. Sasuke, what would the point of being put into teams be then? Sakura also perked up, but Sasuke-kun we're Genins and he's a Junin. The only way we'll be able to pass is if we work together. Ha, yeah right, but the one who doesn't get a bell will fail. I'm not willing to take that risk. Naruto sighed. He's hoped that Sasuke would come around easily. Guess he'd hoped just a little too hard. Listen, how about I be the one to not have a bell? Then if it is true that one of us has to go back, it'll only be me, alright. Hey fine Dobie. Your loss. Now get me out of here. Why is he doing this? He would never have done that last week. Naruto. Something is definitely wrong. Wait. Why am I worrying? Me and Sasuke-kun are going to pass. Cha. After the Uchiha survivor was out and had shaken the dirt out of his underwear, Sakura blushed when he started messing with his shorts. Sasuke asked, "So Dobi, what's this plan?" The genin gave a wide foxy grin. "Okay, this is what we're going to do. Ha 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 ha. Got that?" They both nodded. "Good. Now watch this." He puts his hands in the Tora seal and started to conjure Kyuubi, except that this time he pushed the chakra out through the ground so they wouldn't see the aura. A few seconds later, the small form of the one-tailed red fox stood before them. Sakura was immediately thinking of how cute it was. "How did you do that?" Sasuke asked. "How was it possible? There was no summoning jutsu indicated. I'll tell you later." He turned to the fox. "You know what to do. Scout out Kakashi-sensei. Go." As the fox ran off, Sakura asked, "Why a fox?" Naruto had a simple answer. Forest, fox. Fox, forest. It fits in. She couldn't argue with that logic. Sasuke interjected, annoyed. "Okay, can we start this plan now?" He received nods. "Well, let's go." The fox looked at him. He looked at the fox. There was something wrong with this picture, but what was it? Well, maybe the fact that the fox was grinning, yes, grinning at him in such an insane way that he almost expected an anvil to drop down on him at any moment in an almost comical Saturday morning cartoon fashion. That was until the little fox snickered and ran back into the forest, at which the silver-haired 26-year-old sweat dropped at. What on earth was that all about? You did it, Fuzzy. The little fox nodded before dissipating. Naruto then turned to his teammates with a smirk. Stage 1 complete. Stage 2 initiate. Sakura, you got that genjutsu I showed you down. Right. Yes, but I'll only be able to hold it for a few moments though. She sounded slightly nervous about the whole ordeal. That's fine, he only needs to glimpse it anyway. Sasuke. The midnight-haired boy turned to him. I know what to do. Excellent. Alright, let's go. With a last nod, they all sped off to where their sensei was currently waiting. Kanton. Gukakyu no Jutsu. Following the shout was a giant intense ball of flame making a beeline for his head. He deftly dodged to the right only to find himself covered in blonde-haired clones holding him in place. When one of them shouted, "Now Sakura," the said genin jumped out in front of them and began a chain of around 6 hand seals. She stopped on hair and shouted out, "Kiken Jitsu no Jutsu, mirror of reality jutsu." A mirror materialized out of thin air in front of the girl. What the? It was then that the masked Jonin noticed the image. I'm wearing a green tutu. He looked down at himself and all he seen was his Jonin uniform. What? Sakura giggled as the mirror faded. Yep, sensei, but it's a special genjutsu that is not visible to the victim. Naruto now joined in. Exactly, but it is visible to everyone else, and cameras. Sasuke. The blonde and his clones leapt away from their sensei. As soon as they were clear, Kakashi heard a click, and out stepped Sasuke, camera in hand. Why, you never. He pointed aghast at the black male his students now had. Oh, but that's not all, sensei. He turned. Now what? His eye widened as the shortest member of the team waved his little orange book in front of his face. Missing something, he made a dive for his precious book when the one holding it threw it high in the air. Now, Kanton. Gukakyu no Jutsu. The speeding fireball was enclosing in on the book as Kakashi leapt after it and the Naruto clones went after him. A few seconds later there was a cry of, "Sakura! Catch!" And the pink-haired genin caught the 2 silver bells easily into her hands. The clones poofed out of existence as her sensei and teammate once again landed on the ground. Devoid of any injury except a bit of singed hair and glove for Kakashi. She turned to Sasuke and offered him a bell, which he readily accepted, just as the bell went off. The 3 genin paused mid-breath and swiveled their heads as one to stare at their sensei. To normal people this was enough to make one scream and hide under a rock, but this time all you could see was Kakashi tenderly stow his saved book back into his pouch. Well, Kakashi looked up. Well, what? And that was when Sakura snapped. What do you mean? Well, what? I'll show you. Well, what? Did we pass or not? The three males in the vicinity stared at her with wide eyes. Shocked. Afraid that he might let loose some PMS, he quickly answered her. After all, that whack from Anko last month did leave its impression. Why? Yes, you passed. Sakura had seemed to calm down when she asked her next question. Wah. What? I said, you pass. A wide grin spread across her features as she punched the air. Meanwhile, you could hear a resounding, hell yeah, from Naruto and a small satisfied, HN, and a smirk from Sasuke. Alright, you three, listen up. They all snapped to attention at the tone of his voice. Okay, from now on, this area is our meeting point. We will meet here at 7 am. We will have our first mission tomorrow. Before he left, he said one more thing. Congratulations, team. I can't believe that they actually passed. Then again, they are so much like my old team. It makes you wonder. And poofed off to wherever it is that he goes. Naruto then turned to his new teammates. Do you guys wanna get some lunch with me and Hinata-chan? Listening to this, Sakura was immediately about to say, no. Why would I want to anyway? He's just an annoying idiot. Just as she was about to open her mouth, she heard another voice. Fine. Sasuke-kun, was her only thought as they began walking towards town. I want to find out more about the Dobi. Something isn't right. Except that stupid smile, but even that seems to have a deeper meaning to it now. He's definitely hiding something, and his new companionship with Hinata is curious as well. Hey Hina-chan, I decided to bring my team, is that okay? Hinata smiled at the blonde boy. Of course, Naruto-kun. Where do you want to go to eat though? In the end, they ended up going to this little stand that sold dango among other things. After which Naruto and Hinata excused themselves after paying and decided to train for a bit. Leaving Sasuke, somewhat evilly, with a Sakura ecstatic that she would get some alone time with the object of her obsession. When they reached the clearing that they would be using for training, Naruto looked straight into Lavender eyes and spoke softly. Now what? She could see the despair and the lost look in his eyes. He knows his goals and where he wants to go, but he doesn't know how to get there. Hinata hugged him and replied with a slightly evil grin in hopes of cheering him up. We get as strong as possible and kick anyone's butt that gets in our way. That one sentence put a smile on his face and eased the tension. For now, at least. For now, they would walk up trees until they could not walk no more. About a month later rings as to this moment. The three young nin from Team 7 were currently resting in a clearing by the river. Sasuke had continued to be weary of Naruto and his oh-so-sudden burst of intelligence, power and maturity. So far, the aspiring shinobi had continued to make progress in making them closer as a team, even if it was so very subtle that it was barely tangible that he was doing it. But it was there, definitely there. They were more team-like, you could say somewhat disjointed in the way that they fighted. As Sasuke became more tolerant, really just more interested in the puzzle that was Naruto, he hated when he couldn't classify a person. Sakura slowly became able to stand and listen to the short one as well. All in all, what brings us to this fine afternoon by the river was thing's statement from Sakura. I wish we were given a real mission. Both boys looked at her. Both of them had said it many times before, but for Sakura to say it was like she had just said, I love Ino. Or, meh. It's just Sasuke. It was next to inconceivable for the ever uncomplaining Sakura. After a few moments of their blank looks, she continued. I mean, sure, we have had missions, but nothing really real in a tangible sense. We are stuck weeding, babysitting, and finding Tora the cat. She paused for a moment to glare accusingly at the sky. I'm starting to get sick of it. Sasuke offered a small HN and a nod in agreement. I'm starting to get frustrated by the lack of growth myself. The eyes of Sapphire, however, had an idea but nodded anyway. This subject could be quite beneficial. You sound like a psychotic madman. You do realize that, right, Kit? Shut it, Fuzzy. A moment later, he suggested this to his teammates. If you guys are bored, and I am too, we should. He paused here, eyes glinting as they both looked at him. Train like the devils at the hind parts and get weapons, real weapons, sword weapons. Then ask, seemingly randomly, for a higher ranked mission and blow Kakashi-sensei's mask off. Sasuke's obsidian eyes sparked at the mention of swords. The dobi continues to remain unpredictable, more information is required. Why am I thinking like a robot? Sakura, however, had something different on her mind, his mask. Excellent. Inner Sakura cackled at the idea of dangerous weapons. Well, how about it? No words were exchanged. Just large smirks and an even larger one from Naruto. 2 days later, Team 7 and Hinata found themselves in the middle of a weapons shop. Naruto and Hinata had both discussed this and had decided that they had get with the program with Sasuke and Sakura as things were drawing closer and the wave mission would come up in about 3 months. Just enough time to increase their skill up to at least mid to high chunin or mid to high jonin in the couple's case. As they explored the weapons shop, they found everything from swords and daggers to clubs and axes. Naruto was easy to shop for, as in the past life he had a pair of claws that went over his knuckles. Similar to Asuma's, except that they were 3-bladed claws that went into holsters on either side of his hips. Hinata, however, was a little harder. Before, her weapon had been a staff with a chakra scythe blade that when swung at an opponent did not cut them. Instead, it caused massive internal damage and blocked all tenketsu within 5 centimeters around where it had made contact. Since this was a very specially made object, it was actually Naruto who thought of it, and they had both designed it with the help of Neji and Shikamaru. She decided to just get a regular staff and to begin work on it so it would hold the jutsu. This jutsu would help in the solidification of the chakra so that one could see it. The staff was made of ebony macassar wood, was about 4 foot long and would go strapped across her back. Now Sasuke was having a bit of trouble. He knew that he wanted a sword. He just couldn't decide on which one. In his left hand he had an obsidian-sheathed kodachi with a midnight blue grip. In his right he had a 1.5 foot longer 5 foot nahanto with a royal blue sheath with silver clasps and an onyx grip. After Naruto had finished paying for his claws, the owner made no fuss as he had see the Uchiha and Hyuga come in with him. He walked over to Sasuke to try and give him a hand. What do you want, Dobi? Naruto was now across from him. He started idly. I see that you are having some trouble in deciding which sword that you want. Sasuke looked up and glared slightly. And did I ask for your help? Now with a big grin the blonde continued. Well, no, but I just wanted to point out that if you chose the Nahanto you would look like a undersized fool and that the Kodachi is more your size. The Uchiha now had a full-on glare but put the Nahanto back regardless. How would the Dobi know? He's probably never even seen a person fight with a sword before, let alone know which one was which and their exact names. He just keeps getting weirder. As you can see, Sasuke is quite suspicious of our young time-traveling hero. However, we must now turn our attention over to Sakura. Sakura was the hardest out of all of them to find a weapon for. Naruto's mind worked quickly as he saw the lost look on Sakura's face as she stared at the rows and rows of weapons on the walls and in cases. That's right, even in the future she had never even used a bladed weapon aside from kunai and shuriken. She had always just used her fists and medical jutsu. The boy then went over to a small case before going over to Sakura and handing them to her. When she saw Naruto shove something in front of her face, her first instinct was to yell at him, but the thing he was holding caught her eye. On closer inspection she could see that they were half-fingered gloves with a red thread leaf design on the backs. As the pink-haired looked at the blonde she said sarcastically. Gloves? That should be my weapon. You're right, Naruto. These gloves are specially made with flexible steel plates on the fingers, knuckles, and back in between the fabric. Also, if they were applied right, they could even deflect blows from swords. Sakura was lost for words by the time he had finished, and all that she could squeak out was a small, "Oh." A sincere smile then crossed his face. Also, I think you would do well with these too. He handed her 2 scrolls and a book. They're on medical jutsu, by the way, and Hinata-chan said that she wanted to learn it as well. Thank you. No problem. And as he walked over to Hinata, he threw over his shoulder, well, I was going to suggest a small tanto to you too, to hide it down your shirt. But well, you don't really have anything to hold it there, do you? This next exclamation was heard from a 5-block radius, followed by a resounding bang. Naruto. You pervert. It has been about 2.5 months since they claimed their weapons and they were all coming along quite nicely. Even Sakura had gotten serious, at least where medical jutsu were involved. Hinata had also got into increasing the strength of her team and driven expectations towards the roof. The only anomaly still present was Team 10. Neither of the duo really knew what to do when it came to them. They just hoped they wouldn't be too far behind if worse came to worse. The mission to Wave would come within the next week or so, and a predicament came to head. What would he do about Haku and Zabuza? And should he also keep Kakashi out of it? If they did tell Kakashi, he would probably have to tell Sarutobi as well, and that could be a good thing, or it could screw things up so badly that their future knowledge would be rendered useless. The entire predicament was enough to make anyone's head hurt. In the end, after a long discussion, many headaches and cries of frustration, the time-traveling duo decided to keep the others, as in Kakashi and other sensei comrades, in the dark until at least after the Wave mission. After all of that, it all came down to this moment. Raven here. The subject is within range, do you copy? Over. Fox here. Raven. Cherry. Force subject into corner while I jump. Cherry. A bit more north. Over. Cherry here. I am in position. The subject is about 10 feet due south. Over. Scarecrow in. Copying all messages. Proceed with plan. Over. Scuffling sounds could be heard, followed by the sound of a screeching cat. Raven here. Identity of the subject confirmed by red bow on left ear. It's Tora. Over. Well done, team. Everyone meet at the rendezvous point. Over. Naruto let an evil chuckle loose as he and his teammates watched Tora be smothered by his over-exuberant owner. The evil little cat manages to run away at least 3 times a week, and every single time his team gets nailed with the duty. If it was up to him, there wouldn't be any cat to find. After the little bout of evilness exuded from Team 7, they all calmly walked up to the missions table for a new assignment. Seeing them, Maruka began to read out what there was left. Babysitting 2-year-old for the wealthy cloak merchant, weeding for the elderly fortune teller, or cleaning the civilian park while the caretaker is on sick leave. What do you pick? This is it. It's today that we get the Wave assignment. I have to make sure we get it. With this thought, Naruto quickly repeated the events from long ago. What? That's it. Come on, old man, we're a lot stronger than those petty D rank. Give us something harder. I'm sick of all of this baby crap. Sakura agreed with a hearty cry of, "Ya, we're not babies." And a firm, "HN," and nod from Sasuke. "Oh dear, I'm gonna hear about this later," was all that came from Kakashi. However, the opposite was true for Iruka. Naruto, you are genin, the lowest of the low. You get D rank and that's it until you get stronger and more experienced. No buts about it. Got it. Iruka finished his rant to see the 3 genin talking among themselves about the weather. Just as he was about to start yelling again, an aged hand on his shoulder stopped him. Well, you 3, you might be right. You have completed over 100 D rank in the past few months. Very well, I shall give you a C rank. A simple escorting mission. He turned to the chunin by the door. Bring him in. An old drunken man of about 50 or so entered. He sneered at the team before voicing out. Are you sure these brats will be able to protect me? The short one looks stupid. Same old Tazuna. Naruto, in the most dark voice and glare he could manage, replied, That's what you think. You old geezer. That voice sent chills down everyone's spine. Breaking out of the tension that had enveloped the room, Sarutobi continued with the briefing. Well, our client's name here is Tazuna. He is a bridge builder from the land of the waves. He has kindly asked for us to give him an escort back to his home. The most you should encounter is random bandits. Dismissed. It was now that Kakashi spoke up. All right, team, you heard the details. We are leaving in 2 hours. Meet at the east gate and bring enough supplies for a week. Go. Nothing more needed to be said. They were gone. Before Naruto did anything, he had to fence Hinata. He couldn't leave without saying goodbye. All in all, it only took him about 10 minutes to find her. She was meditating on top of the Hokage mountain. Hina-chan. She looked up just as he sat beside her. Yes, Naruto-kun. What happened? It's the wave mission. Our team just got assigned to it. We are leaving in about an hour and 40 minutes. Also, I have decided to tell Sakura and Sasuke about the Kyuubi. Hinata's eyes widened as she heard what he said. Are you sure about telling them? And are you going to be okay on that mission? Zabuza is an A-rank missing nin after all, and Haku is nearly as strong. There was worry and concern in her voice that was clearly heard by Naruto. He hated to make her worry. Don't worry, Hina-hime, everything will be fine. I'm positive. We are way stronger than last time, and that turned out okay, didn't it? As for the telling them, well, I need to have them trust me. Sasuke is getting quite suspicious and I need to tell him something. Divulging a secret that important that will at least sedate them for a while. Even Sakura has noticed something. Hinata nodded. She had noticed too. Make sure you come back. I don't know what I would do if I lost you. She didn't like it one bit that she was being this worried and clingy. The heiress knew that she was being childish, but she all of a sudden had a strange feeling that something was going to horribly wrong. The blonde knew that something was wrong by the look in her eyes. She always got that look when she felt that something bad would happen. Don't worry, I'll return in one piece. I promise. Naruto hugged her then and placed a chaste kiss upon her lips, leaving a lingering "see you later" hanging in the warm jasmine-scented breeze. AAAANNND. That is chapter 7. I would have went on, but I decided to break it up to make it dramatic. I mean, just read the last sentence. Also, chapter 8 will be out this weekend. I promise. I will even date it. This is Tuesday, February 4th, and the next chapter will be out this weekend. Also, thank you everyone for the reviews. I had severely doubted that I would even get 100. This is amazing. Naruto joined his team at the gates and they were quickly on their way. With their backs to their beloved village, they set off into the noonday sun. Thoughts racing, pulse pounding, determination clear on their faces. One thing was ringing through all three of their minds: this mission would go down in history. Sighing softly, Hinata slowly made her way back to her home. The feeling of dread had not subsided, in fact, it had just grew stronger. Something was not going to go as planned and they would have to pay the consequences. Please don't let it be too bad. I have to see him again. Steeling her resolve, she shook away any more thoughts on that subject. She had faith in Naruto, and he never broke his promises. After stepping through the front door and taking off her shoes, she heard soft steps to her right. Looking down that hall, Hinata came face to face with her father. Looking up curiously, she questioned, "Yes, father. Is there something wrong?" Still baffled at the startling change in his eldest daughter, the Hyuga head shook his head, negative. Although I request that we have a short training session. I need to judge your skills. Pretty soon there needs to be a decision as to who will be heir. You or Hanabi. The council is leaning towards your sister. Prove that you have at least some worth to the Hyugas, don't disappoint. Inwardly smirking, Hinata replied, "Of course, father. When shall we begin?" Baffled still, the old Hinata would have stuttered, trembled, the works. But this Hinata, well, let's just say he wants sure if she could be trusted. Immediately. 10 minutes later found the two Hyugas in the training area at the center of the complex. Each low in their stance. With an unheard signal, both began the deadly dance. Using her cat-like flexibility, Hinata ducked around her father before spinning around to take a shot at his unprotected back with a gentle fist. Anticipating this attack, Hiyashi spun on his heel to grab her wrist before tossing her towards a wall. Why do you not activate your Byakugan? Recovering from the throw, Hinata replied, "Because I don't need it. Using a Kekkei Genkei as a crutch is pure foolishness. I will use it only when I have to." Quickly flicking several shuriken in her father's general direction, she began a series of hand seals. Water style. Mizu Yeba no Jutsu. Eyes widening, he quickly jumped out of the way of crescent-shaped blades of water. How on earth does she know that jutsu? Rapidly getting more serious, and more suspicious, the Hyuga head power up his own Byakugan. Without sparing another moment, Hiashi charged. He sent his palms left and right, forcing Hinata to dodge with everything she had. Starting to counter now, the heiress flared up her chakra before taking a jab at her father's ribs. Hinata then jumped high before flipping upside down and spinning swiftly, releasing chakra from all pores of her body. Hurtling toward her father at breakneck speeds, she shouted, "Rensei Kaden." Hastily dodging this latest surprise, he watched in amazement as his daughter drilled a 5-foot wide and 3-foot deep crater into the ground. Where had she learned this? As Hinata once again began to attack, Hiashi held up his hand. "Enough. I do believe that I've seen a sufficient amount of what you can do. Now the only reason is how. Follow me, Hinata. You have some explaining to do." Following after her father, barely even winded, she thought to herself with a smirk. That'll teach him not to underestimate me. Although I wonder what my excuse will be about the sudden strength and the jutsu. Oh well, I'll think about that when I get to it. There's the puddle. They should be popping up any minute now. True to his thoughts, two figures rose out of the water. The events of last time repeated. Kakashi was quickly sliced through by the chain. Sakura screamed, "Sensei." Trying to keep everyone calm, Naruto took charge. "Sakura, guard Tazuna." The pink-haired genin took a few shaky breaths before complying. She knew that this was not a time for arguing. The blonde then turned to Sasuke. "Up for a tag team?" Nodding affirmative, he replied, "You take right. I'll take left." "Oh, are the little kiddies trying to make up a plan?" The guy on the left cackled wildly before continuing, "Do you even know who we are, boy? We are demon brothers. We'll slaughter you and the old man before you can even try to fight back." "Right, brother. Right, your brother." The other one responded, "Let's get them." With that last comment, the battle began. Sasuke streaked towards his target, drawing his sword as he went. With a loud clang, metal struck metal as the sword was blocked by the demon brother's poisoned claw. Naruto also charged his target with his own claws. Striking, parrying and slashing. This went on for about a minute for both of them before Sasuke decided to immobilize them. True to memory, the Uchiha threw a shuriken and kunai, catching the chain that linked the brothers together, and embedding it deep into the wood of the tree behind them. Stowing their main weapons, both boys ran at the duo, simultaneously jumping and nailing the missing nins in the head, effectively knocking them out. After tying the two ninja up, they both heard a familiar female voice. "Well, that was slightly anticlimactic," Sakura commented after getting over original shock. "You two took them out in no time." "Indeed they did, Sakura." Everyone turned to the source of the voice as Sakura squealed, "Kakashi-sensei. I thought you died." Chuckling at her reaction, he lightly explained, "It would take far more than those two to bring me down, Sakura. I simply used a simple genjutsu and the replacement jutsu. I had to see if they attack as shinobi or if they were going after Tazuna here." Speaking of which, they were. The masked Junin then turned to the elderly bridge builder, who audibly gulped. "Please. I can explain. I beg you just to hear me out." Tazuna's hopeless tone was enough to get him to listen. He told them all about Gato, how poor his country was and how he was the sole hope for them and how he needed to complete the bridge so that his daughter and grandson might live in peace. The desperation in his voice was enough to convince him of the genuine reason for this deception. Really, the most our village could afford was AC rank. Everything else was too expensive. Please continue the mission, I'm their only hope. Please, I beg of you. It was here that his voice died out, waiting in a tense silence as Kakashi thought through his words. It was a long moment before the Junin turned to his students. "What do you three think?" Naruto immediately, of course, answered with, "Of course, let's continue. We can't just leave him now. Not after all that." But Naruto just thin. Sakura was sharply cut off by Sasuke. "If the Dobi's in, I'm in." Seeing that she was outnumbered, the pink-haired Kunoichi assented as well. Observing that his students were decided, Kakashi sighed. You do realize what this means, right? This mission is now B ranked, possibly A. They will probably be sending stronger ninja next time, as those two are Chunin and you beat them so easily. All three genin nodded. Very well, we shall continue, but I'm send a message to Hokage-sama informing him of the events, got it? They all nodded once more. Tazuna, consider yourself a lucky man. If this was any other team they would have probably turned back. Still slightly shaking, Tazuna did nothing but nod along as well. They stayed a few more minutes for Kakashi to make sure the captives were knocked out and securely tied up, and also sending of the message with one of his summoned dogs before proceeding on their way to the wave. Back at the Hyuga household, Hinata was currently kneeling on a cushion in front of her father with a table between them in his office. She had been waiting for 20 minutes while her father stared her down. No doubt trying to intimidate her when branch member entered to serve the tea. She offered a stiff, "Thank you," to the servant before taking a sip. What is he trying to do? This is getting quite annoying and I wasn't in the best of moods to begin with. I wish he would just get on with it already. As if reading her thoughts, Hiyashi began. Are you really my daughter? Well, she hadn't been expecting that one. What do you mean? Are you really my daughter? Of course I am. What else would I be? What on earth was her father thinking? The head took a slow sip of his tea before replying calmly. A spy perhaps, although you would be doing a pretty bad job of it, as my daughter is shy and weak, not assertive and skilled as you are. Hinata struggled to hold in a laugh. He really thought she was a spy. No, father, I really am Hinata. What would I need to prove it to you? Hiyashi fixed her with a hard stare. Show me your Byakugan, and explain how you know those jutsu you used. Fine if that's what you want. The indigo-haired girl made a hand seal. Byakugan. The veins around her eyes bulged and the iris became more defined and calculating as the Kekkei Genkai manifested. Releasing the chakra, her eyes returned to normal. Satisfied, Hiyashi's gaze did not waver. The jutsus. I've been training non-stop to get stronger, and when I graduated I decided that I didn't want to be that weak shy girl anymore. So I peeled away that mask. I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to be strong, to be somebody. That is my goal. I hope that sounded alright. It was all I could think of. Although not quite convinced of her reason about the jutsus, he was sure that it was his daughter. She was so much like her mother. Very well. I believe you, and as you have finally shown your worth, I will be training you personally for 2 hours each day after your training with your team. Dismissed. Hinata bowed and exited Hiyashi's office with an odd expression on her face. Well, this is an unexpected turn of events. In future, her father hadn't started to train with her personally until she was nearly 16 after the mission to capture Sasuke and Itachi. She wondered how this would affect things in the long run. Until then, however, she had a team to meet up with. Team 7 and Tazuna had been traveling for about 6 hours now. The sun was going down, Tazuna was getting tired, and the shadows were elongating, enveloping the ground in darkness. So shall we stop here for the night? Kakashi posed the question that was on all of their minds. And of course they all nodded. Ninjas needed sleep after all. Kakashi had each assigned them assignments. Sakura was collecting herbs and berries while Sasuke caught fish and Naruto got the firewood. While they were all out doing this, Kakashi was setting up the tents. Naruto decided to make his move. He was going to tell them about Kyuubi. Oh, it took Naruto approximately 5 minutes to get both of them to come with him. He had decided that now was the best time because they had a legit reason to be away from the campsite. Anyway, he led them to a small clearing and began in a solemn voice. I know you are both suspicious of me. And to tell you the truth, you have every right to be. Sasuke's eyes narrowed as he heard those words. So I was right. There is something going on here that's unnatural. Sakura just looked confused and slightly suspicious. She just kind of thought that she had been imagining things. The Raven was the one to speak up. Well, Naruto began to sweat. Do you think that this is the right time, Q? Yes. If you didn't now, they might not trust you later. Call me out if you want. All right. The blonde began once again. Well, I've decided to tell you what I've been hiding. I want you to trust me. Please, you guys, aside from Hina-chan, are the closest things to family I have. And I don't want to ruin that. To say the least, they were both shocked. They meant that much to him. Sakura spoke this time. What is it, Naruto? He cast his gaze to the ground. He couldn't bear to meet their eyes as he revealed the secret. He truly didn't know what they would do, and he was, even though he hated to admit it, he was scared. Well, you know the story of how the fourth Hokage, Yondaime, defeated the Kyuubi, right? They both nodded. Well, that's not exactly the truth. He did defeat the Kyuubi, but he didn't him. He sealed him. Sealed him into his own son. Into me. If they were shocked before, then now they were absolutely flabbergasted. Sakura's mouth was wide open as she pieced the story together. So you're saying that the Kyuubi is inside you? And that the Yondaime is your father? Naruto nodded solemnly. I was the only baby born that day. Besides, he wouldn't put that kind of burden on anyone else's child. He knew I would keep the village safe. Even if the village didn't, and just thought I was some sort of demon spawn. He knew I would be strong. That is why I still look up to him, even though he did that to me. After all, he's still my dad. He looked up at them now, well, more at Sasuke, since the Avenger hadn't spoken yet. Sasuke. The addressed eyes flashed. The pieces were connecting. The fox. What? For a moment the blonde didn't know what he was talking about. The fox that you summoned during the bell test. That was Kyuubi, wasn't it? Sakura just kept looking back and forth between the two, barely daring to believe her ears. Yes, it was. Kid let me out. You sure? Yeah. The red chakra began to radiate from Naruto and take the form of the fox from the test. When it solidified, the fox's body was a solid blood red with eyes to match. What I think startled them the most, though, was that it spoke. I am Kyuubi. If she hadn't been so scared, Sakura would have squealed at how cute the fox was, but as it was, she was shaking too much to talk. Sasuke was in a similar predicament, although he still had his head. I see. Is that all you're going to say? I see. Oh, so original of you. Kyuubi's tone was beyond sarcastic. Naruto now interjected. Anyway, as you can see, this is Kyuubi. Oh, and Sakura, don't be afraid. He's harmless. Well, at least right now. You see, I control his chakra and size, so he can't really do anything without my permission. After giving Naruto an evil glare, which Hinata thought was adorable when he did, he continued, he is correct. After all, he is in simplest forms my jailer. We have just came to an agreement. I get some freedom in exchange for chakra and knowledge. So that's why you're smart all of a sudden. She had finally found her voice. I better just let them think that, at least for now. Essentially, yes. Does Kakashi-sensei know that you talked to Kyuubi? No, he doesn't. I plan on telling him later though. But for now I just needed you guys to trust me. Sasuke spoke for both of them then. I trust you. You had absolutely no reason to reveal this to us now, but you did anyway. I trust you. Sakura agreed eagerly. Yes, I do too. I trust you. Our time-traveling hero broke out in a relieved smile. They mean it. They actually mean it. They trust me. Thank you. Even Sasuke had a small smirk on his face now when they all suddenly remembered Kakashi-sensei. As one, they all dashed back to the campsite. Oh lovely. Slightly agitated Kyuubi dispersed and flew back to the seal. How could they just forget him? As they entered the campsite, Kakashi couldn't help but notice the differences in the way his team interacted. Sakura seemed slightly more kind towards Naruto. Sasuke seemed a little more relaxed. Like he had just solved an annoying puzzle. And Naruto, well, he seemed quite relieved about something, like a great weight had just been lifted off his shoulders. All in all, Kakashi felt left out. What the hell did I miss? Meanwhile, in Naruto's head, an irritated presence made itself known. You forgot me. What? I said you forgot me. Oh whoops. Won't happen again. Hee. The next day passed smoothly for the young team. Well, at least it was smooth so far. They had just got in the boat that would take them to the island. Only Naruto knew what was coming next. Zabuza, don't forget about Haku, or are you just gonna leave him too? Shut up already, Kyuubi, I said I was sorry. Grumbling, the massive demon retreated deep within the cage. Finally, some peace and quiet. I heard that. Naruto just decided to stay silent after that. Anyway, they had been walking for about 10 minutes on the island now when Naruto felt something odd shift in the air to the left. He could tell that Kakashi sensed it too. Remembering what it was, Naruto shouted just in time. Duck. Sasuke dragged the bridge builder down with him as Kakashi grabbed Sakura. A giant clever-like sword whizzed over their heads with tremendous force and lodged itself into a tree behind them. As they got back to their feet, a tall form lightly landed on the sword. Ah, Konoha ninja. What a pleasant surprise. Oh, and Kakashi of Sharingan Eye as well. Wonderful. The genin all stared in disbelief. Who was this? Aside from this, the three got into formation surrounding Tazuna. Kakashi meanwhile had identified the intruder. You're Zabuza, one of the former 7 swordsmen of the Hidden Mist. Otherwise known as the Demon of the Bloody Mist. So you know my name, I see, Kakashi. Well, do you also know that I'm going to slaughter you, those pathetic kids you call genins, and the old man too? Prepare to die. The Demon of the Mist then snatched up his sword and jumped high, creating hand signs as he went. Kurigakure no Jutsu. A thick mist seemed to appear out of nowhere, cutting vision range dramatically. They could now only see a few feet in front of them. Total whiteout. Sensei. It was easy to hear the waver in Sakura's voice. Kakashi slowly lifted his forehead protector to reveal his lone Sharingan eye. Don't worry, Sakura. I won't let him harm you. Just keep your positions, I'll take care of him. I don't let my friends die. Zabuza watched this little show with sarcasm. Who did Kakashi think he was? Now to make his move. Sasuke shivered as the voice seemed to originate from right beside him. The master of over 1,000 jutsu. Truly I am honored. But it's time for you and your precious squad to disappear. The maniacal voice then drifted from by Sakura's ear as she started trembling. Ah, this one's frightened, all the more fun. The voice then came from everywhere as it began taunting. 8 choices. Oh, the choices. Let me see. Kidneys, heart, liver, lungs, spine, clavicle vein, jugular vein, and finally the brain. Which should I go after this time? The murderous intent focused on the group intensified dramatically. It was impossible to ignore. Sasuke now started shaking just as much as Sakura. This intent. It's so strong. Enough to drive a person crazy. I don't know if I can. Sasuke. Don't worry, I'll protect you even if it kills me. As I said before, I don't let my comrades die. We'll see about that. Zabuza then appeared in the middle of their formation. Naruto quickly deflected the huge sword with his claws that seemed to snap onto his hands out of nowhere. Sasuke cursed his forgetfulness and drew his own sword while Sakura shoved on her gloves. Seems like the only one prepared was Naruto, as usual. At least we now have some idea as of why. Sasuke ran at Zabuza from behind and swiped at his back only to have him turn to a puddle of water at his feet. A water clone. His eyes widened as he heard a clang behind him. Kakashi was briefly engaged in a struggle using a kunai as a defense from the sword. When that same sword managed to slice right through him, leaving that same puddle as Zabuza's clone had. The real Kakashi was now behind the target with his kunai at the missing nin's neck. I've got you, Zabuza. Now what will you do? This. The Zabuza in front of their eyes once again turned to water. This time, however, Kakashi was prepared. He ran full tilt onto the lake to their right, and as predicted, Zabuza followed. Briefly then engaged in taijutsu before the Mist's demon summoned up 3 more water clones, 2 of which went after Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura. Zabuza then caught Kakashi by surprise as he was distracted by the clones. Mizutoya no Jutsu. The silver-haired Junin was now encased in a watery prison. Sensei. All 3 genin shouted as the clones began to surround them. Sasuke. Sakura, we need a plan. Sensei is trapped and we are surrounded. How about 4C? Naruto looked at Sakura like she grew 3 heads before comprehension dawned. Sakura, you're a genius. You sure you can do it? This was the first time since he traveled from the future that he seen Sakura smile like that. Of course I can. With one last look at each other, Naruto and Sasuke took off while Sakura made hand seals. Kyaku Ketsuretsu no Jutsu. The clones surrounding her and Tazuna were suddenly gripping their heads in pain and screaming bloody murder. With a quick flick, she sent 2 shuriken attached to wires speeding past the clones. With a sharp yank, the shuriken changed course and wrapped around their targets. Acting quickly, Sakura ran to the clones, giving one a crushing kick to the stomach and the other a fistful of her metal-plated gloves. To say the least, the clones were dissipated. Meanwhile, Sasuke and Naruto went towards the last clone that was out on the lake along with the real Zabuza. Sasuke streaked around the clone to try for a swipe at his back, only to be defending against the monster sword. He managed to hold his off for a brief moment before it sent him tumbling backwards into the water, with a shallow gash in his right forearm. When he surfaced, he shot 3 kunai back at the clone. Putting away his sword, Sasuke began hand seals. Kanton. Gukaku no Jutsu. He sent a fireball at the clone only to have him dodge. But that was what he was hoping for. Using the wire attached to the windmill shuriken hidden within the fireball and adding a little chakra, he managed to change the path ever so slightly and clip the clone on the ankle. Just enough to dissipate it. Sighing in relief, he turned to give Naruto backup. While Sasuke was fighting the last clone, Naruto created 2 shadow clones for himself. One of his clones transformed itself into a windmill shuriken, which the other clone hurled at Zabuza. Naruto then took a leap high into the air and began hand seals. Kazaiba no Jutsu. Like Hinata's water jutsu, this jutsu created blades of wind hurtling towards Zabuza. And since Zabuza was currently in the air from jumping over the shuriken from the clone, he was forced to dodge. He didn't get any breaks though, because where he dodged to was engulfed in a hail of fireballs. Sasuke was apparently finished. Kakashi stared at his team with amazement. Where had they learned this? As far as he knew, they had only just mastered water walking. He had no idea that they could perform these jutsu. Especially Sakura. Hell, he didn't even know what that jutsu was. Realizing that the battle was at a standstill between Sasuke, Naruto and Zabuza, he quickly jumped into the middle, briefly noting that Sasuke had a cut on his arm and that both of them looked quite winded. Naruto, Sasuke, go back to Sakura and the bridge builder. I will take it from here. Too tired to talk, they both nodded and did as told. Kakashi turned back to the missing nin and said as menacingly as humanly possible. You're mine now. As Naruto and Sasuke rejoined Sakura, Naruto sighed with relief. Well, I think that went pretty well. You. Sasuke nodded once again. That was insane. I can't believe we actually pulled it off. Sakura chimed in now. It was amazing. You pulled it off brilliantly. Not quite so brilliantly, Sakura. The prodigy held up his arm to show the gash. It was really starting to sting. Eyes widening, Sakura immediately began to work on it. Well, I'm not as good as Hinata at this, but I'll be able to patch you up, so hold still. For once, Sasuke did as he was told. While his friends were talking, Naruto observed the battle between the 2 Junin. So far everything was going as it did last time, right down to what they said. They were nearing the end now as Kakashi finished with the last water jutsu, causing a giant wave to come up over the trees a little ways to the left. He heard Zabuza land with a thud as he fell out of the tree a few feet in front of him. As the blonde neared the missing nin, Kakashi landed lithely beside him. Is he dead, Kakashi-sensei? No, not yet, at least, Naruto. The silver-haired Junin then pulled out a kunai from with his holster. Just as he was about to use it to end the mist demon's life, 2 Senbon flew out of nowhere and lodged themselves deep within Zabuza's throat, coming out of the other side. Thank you for immobilizing him. I have been waiting for an opportunity such as this for quite some time now. Haku. The figure in the tree now hopped to the ground. I'm a hunter nin from Kurigakure. You can leave the body to me now. I'm sure it holds many secrets. Kakashi quickly checked Zabuza's body for a pulse. There's no heartbeat. He really is dead. I see. And there's no heartbeat, so we shall leave you. Sasuke and Sakura were now paying rapt attention, nerves on end. They weren't too keen on outsiders at the moment, seeing as what had just happened. So you dispose of the body. Am I right? Sasuke seemed to have many questions these days. Yes, that is correct. Now, if you don't mind. Naruto now saw his chance. Oh, of course. Sorry for keeping you. I hope to meet you again one day, and thanks again for the help. In a friendly greeting, he held out his hand, and Haku, wanting to play his part, shook it. Haku stared at the grasped hands. What is he giving me? Letting go and quickly hiding the note to review later, Haku picked up his master. Farewell. The nin then disappeared in a whirl of fog. Kakashi turned to his team and Tazuna. Well, lead the way. He then promptly passed out. Sakura was the first to speak. Oh great. Now we have to carry him. Naruto, you get shoulders. Me and Sasuke will grab the legs. Grumbling about annoying teachers, both boys did as asked and dragged their sensei to Tazuna's. About 10 minutes later they arrived, tired and sweaty but feeling accomplished. They had got the bridge builder home safely, however difficult it had been. Tazuna did not even have a scratch. Hinata sighed. Naruto had been gone for 3 days. She knew that the original mission had lasted over a week, but that didn't help. Each morning she would wake up with that horrible feeling in her stomach. She was able to distract herself from it during the day, but at night when she tried to sleep, it was almost unbearable. Hurry, Naruto. I haven't felt like this since that time. Staring at the stars out her window, she was comforted just a little by the fact that where Naruto was, he would be looking at the same stars.